Grinch is the newest film from Illumination Studios. This is the studio that has produced the Despicable Me series, and The Grinch is a new adaptation of the classic Dr. Seuss childhood story of how the Grinch stole Christmas. Of course, there's the original 1960s cartoon, and then the 2000 live-action Jim Carrey film. And Benedict Cumberbatch stars in the lead voice role of the Grinch. And in this new Grinch movie, I was a little bit disappointed with his voiceover performance for the title character. The Grinch character has always kind of been portrayed as like somewhat menacing and very grouchy, very mean. He's really not a nice character. He's not like a villain. He's sort of a menacing presence. And I didn't get that with Cumberbatch's performance. The way he voiced the character, it was kind of just sounded like he was whining and complaining. That just disappointed me. Cumberbatch's performance kind of just missed for me. And then, as with all adaptations of the Grinch story, the film is narrated, and this adaptation, it's narrated by Pharrell Williams. When you have this kind of story, like the story of the Grinch that's narrated, I mean, the job of the narrator is to kind of set the tone and give you like emotion. Like you want to evoke emotion in the audience of what you want them to feel going into this story and going into each scene when they're narrating. And I didn't feel anything with Pharrell's narration. I mean, it was very boring for me to listen to. The way he read it, the way he read the script, I just was like, it could have put me to sleep, and that was disappointing. And then along with that, the fact that also the narration was boring, and then they didn't include what I would call Seussian words, these are the words that Dr. Seuss uses in his stories that are not regular words. They're the made up words. That was something that I noticed. It was in the original cartoon. It was even in the Jim Carrey film in 2000. But I did not notice it at all. I didn't hear any of it in this new adaptation. So I felt this is a story that you want to use those words. That's part of what Dr. Seuss created with his story. You want to have that in the film, and it wasn't present. And for me, it made it more ordinary and more boring. Without that, it's well, then what separates this story from other Christmas tales in similar fashion or similar tone or whatever, it takes away from the specialness of the Grinch story. Another key point I felt was the song "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." That song, there's key elements to every film, right? And when you're dealing with a known story or a known property, there's always that the audience is going to expect, and people are going to be counting on these certain things to be present in your adaptation of it. And so the song "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," that's something that I feel most people would expect when you're doing a Grinch film. It's not really present in the film. I mean, it sort of is, in the beginning of the film, when the Grinch is sort of just being shown on screen, you get 20 or 30 seconds of this song. And not only that, it was a different version than what they've previously done, which is fine, except for the fact that this version was a rap version. I believe it's done by an artist named Tyler, the Creator, which I don't know him, so I don't have anything to say about him. The rap version of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" didn't really work for me. I felt with this type of story, with this type of setting and just the vibe of the story, I felt that it missed the mark with me. I just wasn't feeling it. What I would have thought would have been better and more in line with this type of film would have been for Cumberbatch as the Grinch to maybe perform the song himself, more like a traditional show tune. I think that just would have worked a little bit better. But that's fine. They try something new. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But the humor in this film, when you have a film like this is this is a kids film, but it's also a family film, and it's something that it's a holiday film. A lot of people are going to see this film. The humor in this film, it it missed for me. It just wasn't working. Early on in the film, there's a scene right at the beginning where the Grinch is sleeping in his bed, and he's sound asleep, whatever. His radio alarm clock goes off, and it's playing some sort of Christmas song, and the Grinch hears it, wakes up to it, and he's laying in bed and he's just like, "Arr!" He's annoyed that this Christmas song wakes him up, so he hits the thing and it turns off, and then he lays back down or whatever, to go back to bed, and it turns on again. There's another, and it's a different Christmas song, and he's just like, "Arr!" He's getting annoyed, and so he throws something at it, and it shuts off, and he lays back down, and then it turns on again, another Christmas song, and he's just like, "Arr!" He's like really annoyed now, and he throws something at it, and it falls off the table or whatever, and it falls down somewhere, and it turns off, and he lays back down, whatever. And then of course it turns on another Christmas song, and he's just like, "Max," like. I was just like, but the entire, and so obviously that's the gag, right? That's the joke, this thing keeps turning on. So like when you do a joke, you want the audience laughing, right? And then like the entire time I'm watching it, this is like my reaction. Like it just wasn't funny. Like what? Like come on, like this is and that sets it up for the whole film. Like it's like, all right, this is the type of humor we're getting. And it's like what I would call lazy humor. Like that's an easy joke to write. Like it didn't take a lot of creativity to come up with that type of joke. Like, and that's how it is throughout the film. Like lazy type of slapstick, easy humor. Like, and I always am disappointed because that stuff just like, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. So another scene, when the Grinch decides that he's gonna, steal Christmas from the Who's, and he's gonna disguise himself as Santa Claus to do this. He decides, okay, I need a reindeer because, Santa Claus has reindeer. So he goes outside of his cave, and he's got this horn, and he's like, "Max, this is like, my reindeer mating horn, and I'm going to blow it and get a reindeer." And blows the horn, and nothing happens initially, and then like this goat appears or whatever, and it goes, "Rah!" Like does that like scream. And I was just like, it's so obvious. This is a total parody of like that Taylor Swift clip on YouTube where she sings her song and then the goat does that scream. And it's just another easy joke, And like the problem with this type of joke is like, this is a joke that dates the film now. And it's going to be a lot harder for a film like that to become timeless and classic. So when you do these jokes that are pop culture references, kids that see it today in the audience, they're going to get it because they've seen that YouTube clip 1,000 freaking times. That's fine. But when those kids who see it today grow up and they show this film to their kids aren't going to know what the hell that is. Like, they're not going to understand the reference. So now you've dated your film, and it's a bad choice in my opinion. In this film, the Grinch, like, openly visits Whoville. Like, in the original cartoon, and then in the Jim Carrey version as well, the Grinch is like constantly kind of like looking down on the Who's, and he never really interacts with them. He's never really doing anything that gives him close contact to the Who's. And I mean, and with the Jim Carrey one, even when he does, he puts on a disguise, and when he goes down, he doesn't let anybody know that he's in Whoville. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them. He doesn't want to like interact with them, and he doesn't want them to know that he's in there. So, but in this one, it's like the Grinch character in this film, he's in his cave and he runs out of like food or whatever, and it's like he's gonna go get groceries now in Whoville, and I'm just like, what? Like the Grinch is going into Whoville just like no big deal, and the Who's like see him. It's not like they don't realize it's him, or they don't recognize it. Like they see him, and like he interacts with them and whatever. Like it's all like it's like just like regular everyday life. And I'm just like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like why does he even bother to live in the cave then if he's constantly making trips to Whoville and whatever? Like, he talks to them people talk to him in the grocery store, or people talk to him like on the street when he's passing them or whatever. And he has like little snarky, mean reactions, I guess, with the Who people, but like they're not like afraid of him. I found it less interesting in this version when he was just regularly interacting with them, like it was no big deal. Like it was just like took away some of like, I don't know, some of what made that character and in this story interesting for me. So another thing I wanted to hit on is like the Grinch's backstory. So in the original cartoon, the Grinch doesn't have a backstory, and we don't know anything about him other than he's a Grinch and he hates Christmas and he lives on top of Mount Grumpy, right? And then the Jim Carrey version in 2000, we get a backstory for him, and it's like, you know, he was living amongst the Who's, and then like they made fun of him, and they made him feel like an outcast, and then he got pissed off and left, and didn't nobody heard from him again, and that was interesting, and it's like, okay, that's, I mean, that you kind of like understand why he's like so angry with the Who's and stuff. So in this one, his backstory is that he's an orphan, and he's in this orphanage, and he's hoping to have a nice Christmas, I guess, and he's imagining that he's going to have a big Christmas with Christmas tree and party and food and everything, and so he comes downstairs and or whatever, and or he comes into the big room, and nothing's there. It's a cold, empty room, and he's just like sad and disappointed, and I was just like, okay, well, I can see why that would make him like upset. I can see why it would make him like depressed and like feel lonely and stuff, but like, why would that make him hate Christmas, right? He like, so for some reason he didn't have a Christmas one year, and he's sad and hurt about that, and now he's upset and now he hates Christmas because of that. Like, I wasn't making the connection. It wasn't like really syncing up for me. I was just like, what? Like, how does that make somebody hate it? I feel like, if anything, that would make me like really want Christmas more, right? Like, you don't have Christmas, why? I always wanted to have a Christmas, but for some reason he's supposedly still supposed to hate Christmas because he never had a Christmas. So I don't know. The one thing this film does do well that I did appreciate was there's a nice kind of like message within the story. Basically, the character of Cindy Lou Who, she wants to talk to Santa throughout the whole film. Her goal is to talk to Santa, and she wants to ask Santa to make a nice Christmas for her mom and to make life easy on her mom and to, help her mom or whatever. They don't really get into the specifics, but that's the gist of it. And I thought that was really nice because obviously, in this film they show her mom like doing everything she can to take care of the kids and working hard to do that. So, it's a nice message for kids to know that parents work hard because they care about us and they want us to have like a great life. I mean, good parents do. I like that message, and it's something nice to have in a film for kids like this. So, at the very least, they can take away a positive message out of the film. I mean, overall, I was disappointed with the film. It just missed the mark for me on a lot of things, but it's not a horrible film. It is not by any means like the worst thing I've ever seen. And, if you're looking for something to just park your kids in front of for a few hours, and, that way you can catch some sleep or something. If you just need something to park your kids in front of, this is a fine movie. It'll entertain them for a couple hours. I mean, however, if your kids are older than 10, I don't know if I would, have them see this film. I think they'd get bored with it. I mean, if you want to have an experience with your kids, like if you want to go to the movies with your kids and kind of have a shared experience with them and see something together that you both can enjoy, I don't know if I really recommend this film because, there are films that do that are they're kid films that are geared for kids, but they have appeal to a larger audience than just the kids themselves. I mean, when you think about things like Pixar or even Despicable Me, those are films and studios that I think would be more appealing on a larger scale. So I'm gonna give The Grinch 2 stars. Thanks for watching, and if you want to tell me what you like about The Grinch, what you don't like about The Grinch, which Grinch movie is your favorite, leave a comment or a like, and appreciate the support.